the transitioning episode where the trans choir is there, all 200 of them were trans. I cried the whole way driving home because so many of them were like so appreciative. Well, they all were appreciative. One, to be there, and two, to say, they said to me, they thanked me for doing justice to this role, and to also, they never thought they'd see themselves on TV, and not literally themselves, but them as in trans, the trans community. And it was overwhelming. When they showed me in the middle of all of them, the whole crowd of us singing up there, I was like bawling. There was nothing acting about it.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Dot Marie Jones is an actor. She sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work. How did you get into acting in the beginning?
Oh, wow. I didn't start or have the opportunity to do something until I was about 27. I majored in criminology, and I worked juvenile probation in a lockdown facility for 4.5 years after college. And I was a power lifter, and I went to college on a track scholarship to Fresno State. And I used to go around and I would do powerlifting meets but I started arm wrestling when I was like 19. I won my first world title. And then the acting came when one of my friends, I had met she and her husband at a bodybuilding expo. Shirley Easton, she played Skye on American Gladiators. So at that time, she was just an alternate, and Shirley called me, and I would do a deadlifting exhibition when they were getting ready to do their bodybuilding show. I'm definitely not a bodybuilder. And so Shirley called me and she said, Dot, this is back in 90. She said, Dot, they're starting to look for big, strong women for a new show. It's going to be kind of like American Gladiators, but medieval. It was called Knights and Warriors. So I was up in Fresno, so I thought, I have nothing to lose. What the hell? So I called the casting lady, Carol O'Leary. I'll never forget her. And found out the information and drove down to Los Angeles to their auditions. And the first day was like physical agility. And so for my size at that time, I was still 6'4". I've lost a few inches because of knee surgeries and arthritis. But I came down to Los Angeles. It was all physical agility. There was probably a few hundred women trying out for these 4 spots. Wow. And the same with the men. And so I knew nothing about acting. I was so sad. Oh, my God. So the first day was all physical. So I did really well. So they said, okay, we'll call you tonight by 8:30 if we want you to come back tomorrow and do a cold read. I'd never heard that word in my life. So I'm thinking, what the hell is a cold read?
Are you going to read in like a freezer? Are they going to have you read a book?
Exactly what I thought. So we're supposed to be warriors. So are we like out in the Arctic? Are we, are we Vikings? What are we? So I'm like thinking, okay, well, I don't even know. So 8:00 came, no call. 8:30 came, no call. And I'm like, well, I didn't get a call back. So then they called and they said, we want you to come back tomorrow for a cold read. And so trying not to act like I knew absolutely nothing, I said, so what would I wear to something like that? Because I'm like, do I wear a parka? Do I wear a sweatshirt? What do I wear? And she says, which helped absolutely nothing. She says, wear your best warrior outfit. So I'm like, what the? So I went and I got just a gray sweatshirt, the cheapest thing I could find, cut it all up, made a headband, cut the sleeves off, cut holes in it, and wore like a red tank top under it. Yeah. And then I had these crazy old weightlifting pants that were zebra print. That was my outfit. And I went back the next day and I didn't know what the sides were. She said, oh, the sides are on the table. And I'm like, so I went over to the table.
Another weird word.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. And so I go over to the table and I'm like, what the hell are sides? And so I pick up the paper and I'm like, oh, okay, the script. And so I rehearsed, and then some of the other girls came in that were called back. And I'm like, oh my God, our outfits were way different. And so we were in this big studio, recording studio, and it was all these lights on me, and I could not see anybody on the table. And so I did the sides, and then they wanted me to improv. And so I just went for it, and I went crazy, and they said, okay, we'll let you know in a couple weeks. And so I went back to Fresno and went back to working at juvenile hall. And at that time I was trying to make a transition from juvenile to adult probation. And about 2 weeks later, they called me and they said, how would you like to be a warrior? And I was like, oh my God, changed my life.
And so tell me though, what it was like to actually be saying those lines with the lights on you, for the first time. Cause that's so fascinating. Like you didn't even do that in school or anything, right? You didn't even so did that just come natural?
No, I just let it go. And I went cause I was supposed to be like this big monster, crazy woman. And I just, because I always played like that with my nieces and nephews and stuff. So what are you doing? I was taking it to almost like the big time wrestler caricature.
Right.
And so I just said, I have nothing to lose. I have a job to go back to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I went for it, and by the grace of God, it worked.
It's amazing. Were you into wrestling like I was? I was in the mid '80s. Wrestling was my whole thing. I think that was like the golden age of wrestling, WWF. Were you into that then? Like that kind of performance?
What's funny is I did watch it when I was in school, at high school and stuff, but when I was going to college, I got a part-time job with a staff event in a security company out of Fresno. And at Cellender Arena, they had big wrestling events. And one of the nights, how there's the wrestling ring, and then right outside the wrestling ring, there's like a space where they can get thrown out of the ring, and then the crowd's on the other side of that fence. I was in the corner in that one. And this was the coolest thing. One of them working for that company is Georgie Animal Steel.
Yes.
Comes up to me and he's like, how he always acts like, and I said, oh my God, I love you. And he just started laughing and started just talking like us. And, he said, listen, he goes, I'm picking your chair tonight. And I said, okay. He goes, I don't want you to get hurt. So just know that when I come out here, I'm going to take your chair. I don't want you to, Yeah. And I said, oh, okay. I said, thank you. And it was a normal metal folding chair. Yeah. I was sitting in it, and I probably weighed 250 at the time. Yeah. And so he came out of that ring and took it and beat the hell out of this guy. To where the seat was folded in half. And I'm like, I know that chair was real because I was sitting in it. Where you see the punches and they miss like by a mile, and the crowd's the same distance as me, and they're going ballistic. I'm like, you saw there was that much space, right? But the chair, I was like, oh my God.
It's so crazy what they do. And and when they slam their bodies, the bodies are really slamming. So that part's real too. It's like this weird fake reality. A lot of it,
they take a miss, but a lot of it, they just get slammed. Yeah. But that was my big extent as far as like that.
And how long were you involved with that show?
I got the call that I got the part. And so I came down to LA and met with everybody. And then we had fittings and all this stuff for our costumes. And my character name was Lady Battle Axe. Nice. And it was amazing. And so we did all the rehearsals and everything, and they built the stage. It was over here at CBS Radford in Los Angeles. And it was so surreal because never in my life did I think that would be my life.
Right.
And so we shot the pilot, and then they said, okay, we have to sell it. So we don't know if we're going to do more episodes or not. And so I'm learning as I go. I knew none of this stuff. Right. And so went back home, went to that. And then I found out that it sold, and they sold 26 episodes. And so I moved to LA because I was like, this is more fun than I've ever had in my life. I want to do this.
Right.
And as stressful as it can be when you don't work for 6 months, it is so much more rewarding. And I don't regret my work at juvenile hall. I loved it. And the kids were amazing, and most of the staff was amazing, but I love what I get to do right now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you were really bitten hard by that bug, and then that bite never went away.
No, it changed my life. And I know in my heart of hearts, I'm supposed to be doing this.
That's amazing. Yes. One of the things that I've discovered through talking to actors is people that were involved in competitive sports seem to have a better time with what this work needs to take out of them. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it just seems like it's
taxing.
The taxingness, the focus that it requires, the getting over rejection, is a similar,
that's the hardest part, I think.
Right. I mean, so all of this stuff. So do you recognize what I'm saying? Is that something that you see in it? Has that helped you throughout this, not just the business, but the actual doing of this work? Using your body, but also the mind element of that also in terms of sports and acting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been one to always do my own stunts because, like, who the hell's going to double me? And and I did do some stunts. I did some motorcycle stunts when I first came down here in the first years for the UK. It was back when Nintendo 64 was a big deal, and that was a blast. And but it can be taxing, and I think the hardest part of it is waiting. I always say the acting's free. We get paid for waiting because of my character. I mean, being a character actress, I've gotten to draw from my experience in my past to, just like this movie, Golden Arm. I mean, I was a 15-time world arm wrestling champion, and this character comes up to where I'm a retired arm wrestling champion, and it is me. So I got to they let me go when it was showing the girls the rules and what not to do and stuff up at the table.
I love that.
That was all from me.
I love that scene. It's my favorite part of the movie. Your scenes. But could you imagine if they didn't call you for this movie? I mean, would you ever forgive them? I mean,
what? I was actually second choice. Come on. You better have known who the first choice was, and that person. You know what? I don't know who it was, but it was somebody who couldn't. And they're like, "Oh my God, of course they called me." And I read the script, and I'm like, "Yeah, it was an easy choice." And plus, to get to work with Betsy Sidoro again, I worked with her on Clipped. That I was a sitcom.
Right.
I can't remember what year it was, about 4 or 5 years ago. And then Mary Holland, I worked with on Greener Grass, which was an indie film that was so silly and funny.
Yes.
And so to get to work with them again and together, they're both brilliant. They're just so funny. And like Kate Flannery and Olivia Stambulia, Brenda the Bone Crusher, she plays in the movie, and she's just phenomenal. And so everybody was great. The cast, the crew, everything. We were back in Oklahoma, and I was there for like a week, and then they finished filming and stuff. And I so wanted to be there for the big tournament, but it was so good to see it. It was so much. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times.
You're the second woman that I've interviewed that I know can kick my ass. There might be other women that can kick my ass that I don't think can. I bet you a lot of them.
So funny. Honey, I'm old and tired.
No. You can. I'm old, so you can definitely kick. I mean, is it? Sometimes people I would imagine it maybe in your early years, they want to actually start a fight with you.
Some people, I've always been like a big gush until you make me mad.
Yeah. Or
you hurt somebody in my family or friends or something. And then one of the things that was crazy, because I was so big, at my tallest, I was 6'4", and at this time I was probably 250, 260, because I was still competing in powerlifting and throwing the shot put and arm wrestling. So one of my old roommates and I were walking into a store, and I have light colored eyes, so I'm always like this unless I have sunglasses on because the sun hurts. So we're walking into the store, and I was just scowling because the sun was blinding me.
Yeah.
And this woman was coming out of the store with her daughter, and she grabbed her daughter and pulled her away and said, "Get over here. That's the meanest woman I've ever seen." I'm like, "You don't even know me."
Right. Isn't that crazy?
Asshole.
Yeah. And did that hurt? That must have hurt.
Well, it was like, because I'm squinting, I'm all of a sudden going to steal your daughter and kick your ass. I mean, what is that?
So
you know
weird.
What I mean?
Yeah. And imagine those people going through life like that, Yeah.
Who were they ever?
Heart. Has it been a burden or a benefit in this industry to have a certain type like you have, a very definitive type. Like you're not going to be going for the damsel role. So is that actually been the narrow focus on that? Has that been helpful actually?
Well, there's like maybe 10, 12 women that I've seen over the years at the same auditions. Yeah. And now that we're getting older, it's a totally different bracket. But I love being a character actress. I love it. And it absolutely has been beneficial to be this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And what happens? Like you have an agent that is just constantly looking for that kind of stuff and throws it your way?
Yeah. And also too, I told him, I said, even if it calls for a man that's and I said, throw my name in there or throw my picture in there. Maybe they'll think outside the box. Right, yeah. Right. And that's worked.
Right.
Yeah.
And something you do on a number of occasions that I would think is something that actors should not do, but you have done to great benefit is you've literally just asked people for a role, like big roles, and they've given it to you. I don't know what kind of mind melding you have on people, what kind of mental control you have over people, like the Jedi mind trick or something. Is that what this is?
Well, my thing is, and the reason I feel comfortable doing that is the people that, like when I said that to Brad Falchuk at the grocery store about Glee,
there you go.
I had just done a pilot with he and Ryan called Pretty Handsome, and I played a trans character. And it didn't get picked up. Somebody had said it was between that and Sons of Anarchy, which, I don't think at that time they were ready for Pretty Handsome, but it was with Joseph Fiennes, Blythe Danner, Carrie-Anne Moss, Robert Wagner, Niecy Nash. I mean, the cast was amazing.
Yeah.
And Alexandria Billings played my wife, who is trans, and she's fantastic, and I love her for helping me. And but when I saw Brad at the grocery store, I'm like, I hadn't seen him in almost a year. And I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? And he said, we were just finishing up with the first season of Glee. And I had seen some episodes. And I said, oh my God, Brad, I said, I love it. I said, come on, write me something. I want to work with you guys. I want to, because I love working with Ian Ryan.
Yeah.
And I had done a few episodes of Nip Tuck prior to that pilot.
Right.
And so he said, well, can you sing? And I said, well, I'm no Mariah Carey, but I can kind of carry a tune. And he just laughed. And I said, you tell Ryan that I want to work with you guys. And I swear within 2 months, my agent had gotten a call from Ryan's people saying, what's Dot doing starting mid-July? And I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be 1 episode, 2 episodes, and they guaranteed me 6. And they ended up, people loved my character.
Yes.
And I ended up doing, I think 11 the first season. And then the next season, I was a guest star. Mm-hmm. And then I got nominated for an Emmy. And then they brought me back in as a guest star again. And I got nominated. My first 3 years on the show, being nominated for an Emmy was mind-blowing to me.
I bet.
Never in my life, It's one of those things you're like, what?
And 3 times. It wasn't like it wasn't a fluke.
Right.
I mean, so at that point, you have this acting thing down then after you were doing it for about 20 years at that point, right?
Oh God, I still say I have no idea what the hell I'm doing.
But this is what all the greats say.
Yeah, but I never took any classes until probably maybe 20 years ago. I took a few classes. I took maybe a couple years of a acting class.
What sent you to acting classes? Like, were you realizing you were hitting walls, boundaries that you couldn't break through? Like, why? Like,
it was friends that I was hanging out with. I went to go hang out with them even more and to get to opportunity that to act with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
did that help?
It was fun.
Did that help you? Yeah.
I think so. I think it taught me how to be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't rush some of these roles because they're I don't even know how to say it. It's like you gotta let it do its thing.
Mm-hmm. What happened when you were realizing that your role on Glee was actually really inspiring to people, especially when the arc that character took?
I've always been one. It's like you don't know how words are going to affect people, so be careful what you say.
Yeah.
Because I'm the last person I want to hurt somebody's feelings just because of something stupid I didn't think out.
Right.
And it also comes from having a lot of nieces and nephews. I always want to do something that I would want them to see. And I'll never do something that's disrespectful to women or anybody for that matter. And I've turned down a few jobs because it was so disrespectful and stupid and disgusting that I would never do another show for this comedian again. So, but like when it really hit me is when I did the domestic violence episode on Glee. And I had women and young girls and even guys contacting me saying that, thank you so much. It gave me the strength to get out of a relationship.
Oh, God.
So it even reiterates what I said about how powerful words are, and the fact that that show had so many messages, and it still does today. And I love that the kids are rewatching it again. And the domestic violence one was heavy. And then the transitioning one was, I didn't know, Ryan had said he had big plans for my character the last season. And we didn't know what was coming until we got a script.
Wow.
Yeah. And so.
How'd you take that?
At first, to be honest, I had been such like a big girl champion for the first, my first 4 seasons on the show. I was like, I didn't want to feel like I was letting them down.
Yeah.
That just because you're big and strong, it doesn't mean you're trans. It doesn't mean anything. Right. It's Ryan trying to take care of everybody and make everybody feel included on this show, which I think he did. And it was like, okay, I just, and then my heart went to, okay, I have to talk to my friends that are trans because I don't want to disrespect anybody, like I said. And so it was incredible. It was really incredible. And the scene where the transitioning episode where the trans choir is there.
Oh, yeah.
All 200 of them were trans.
That's amazing.
I cried the whole way driving home because so many of them were like so appreciative. Well, they all were appreciative. 1, to be there, and 2, to say, they said to me, they thanked me for doing justice to this role, and to also, they never thought they'd see themselves on TV, and not literally themselves, but them as in trans, the trans community. And it was overwhelming. It was really overwhelming. And it was done so beautiful. And, oh my God. And Alex Newell is unbelievable. And he was the trans character on the show. And oh my God, her singing made me cry. And when they showed me in the middle of all of them, the whole crowd of us singing up there, I was like bawling. There was nothing acting about it.
Actors have been talking about how this endeavor of acting is unlike any other in this way, which is that no matter what happens to you in life, good or bad, it can be used, and actually it could make the work better. Like I'm not sure that could be said for a brain surgeon, if his wife breaks up with him, that morning, he can't use that.
Exactly. You don't want to take that to work.
Right.
Yeah.
But you almost died last year, and that's real. Like the story you tell about that, having a very, very close to a widowmaker heart attack.
Yeah.
How is something like that going to, or maybe it already has, work into your, instrument, going through that, and I'm sure a lot of that was probably frustration at all the people that got your diagnosis wrong. I'm sure that's part of it, but just the idea.
I'm still pissed off about that.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I'm honestly lucky I didn't die.
Yeah. I
was told I had asthma for 3 weeks and given stronger and stronger inhalers, which only made my heart race faster. And so she was barely ticking as it was.
Literally, the misdiagnosis, what they gave you, was actually making you worse and closer to your heart attack. That's the insane thing.
And Bridget, my wife, Bridget, she had had a PFO. She had 2 strokes like 3 years before in her 40s.
Oh, wow.
And it was because she had the hole in the heart. So our cardiologist out here at our hospital, he's thank God 2 miles away, saved her life 2 years before and saved mine in that January 9th. She insisted I go to him because she actually was a cardiology nurse when she lived back in Georgia. And
that's the other thing to thank God, right? That she,
right? She saved my life.
Yeah. So what is all this, like, what does going through that do for your work as an actor? I mean, like, does it enrich the work somehow?
Well, I never thought that I took things too seriously, you know what I mean, with a grain of salt, because there's always so much worse that could have happened, and it didn't. And I was actually in the middle of the starting of having a heart attack when I went to the cardiologist that day.
Wow.
And he ended up sending me to Bridget's like, will you please just put her in the hospital? And so he said, I got to use the restroom. So I went to the restroom and I walked back. It was literally like 15 feet away from the office we were in. When I came back, because what happened was I'd have this burn. You know, when you walk out in the snow and you breathe in and it burns?
Yes.
That's what I had. And everybody has different symptoms. And he goes, I come back in and my chest was burning. He said, just walk into the restroom and back, your chest is burning. I said, yeah. He goes, Bridget goes, please put her in the hospital. And so he put me in the hospital, and then they did my blood work to check the patronins, which are the numbers in the blood, to see if you are indeed having a heart attack. And it went from 0.14 to 4 in 3 hours.
Oh my
so
God.
They, all of a sudden, they're rushing around. I said, what's going on? Because I was supposed to go into the cath lab the next morning. And they said, Dr. Wynn's on his way. You're going to the lab right now. And so by 9 o'clock that night, they took me down to the cath lab, and they, thank God, put a stent in and was able to save me because the Widowmaker was 99% blocked.
99%.
And isn't it funny that stent cured my gosh damn asthma? That was being a smart ass. I did not have asthma. It's the first thing Dr. Wynn, our cardiologist, we love him so much. He goes, I told him the symptoms and what I'd been to see 2 female doctors 4 times within the last 3 weeks. And he said, you don't have asthma. Because I told him it burns, and then when I stop, it goes away. He said, if it was asthma, it would not go away that fast. And so thank God.
It's another lesson. Like we want to trust doctors so much, like automatically. Yeah. Like we just want to, because they're doctors, they're smart, like, oh God.
Do you know what I say? That's why it's called practice in medicine. Nobody's got it down yet.
Yes. Are you going back to Rock of Ages?
I pray to God I am. That was the time of my life.
Would you have like 2 weeks before COVID? How long did you rehearse? Because
I rehearsed in New York for 2 weeks.
Right.
Oh my God, Kevin Raponi, who is a swing on the show, he and Pam Relmer, who's the stage manager for the show back there, are the saints, because I am not a dancer. I barely can walk. And the singing stuff was something to learn, because I'd never done a musical. I never did Broadway or anything like that. I'd done a play once, but it wasn't musical. And so for 2 weeks, they were my saints and helped me. And then I went up on, I believe it was February 24th.
Oh God.
Barely a month after the heart attack. That was only about
a week and a half before COVID, right?
Yeah. Well, I got 2 weeks in, and I believe March 12th was our last show.
At least you
got that. So I got 2 weeks in. I know, but they owe me 6 weeks. I say they don't owe me nothing, but I want those 6 weeks. I want it to be 6 months. I don't care where it's at. I want to do it again. But the whole crew and everybody on that back there were so amazing, and like would help me. And I would get turned around, and like Ashley Matthews, who is one of the dancers and stuff, or she's also a swing. And like there's this one part I kept forgetting that I'm supposed to go off stage at this time. The lights were down, and I had like that fast to get off stage before they came back up. Ashley would grab my arm and just yank me off stage. It was hilarious. They saved my ass. it was the most fun ever.
I bet. And
I want to do it again.
What was that first night like for you when you first were going on the stage in New York? I mean, that must have been kind of crazy. Scary.
It was surreal. I was terrified and excited.
And you love this play. I mean, you love this musical.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
I'd seen it like, Bridget and I had seen it like 20 sometimes in Vegas. Yeah. So it's not like,
Wow.
But it was the most incredible experience of my life. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Dot Marie Jones, thank you so much.
Oh, Peter, thank you. You're a sweetheart. Thank you so much.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.